Well, hello. Welcome to Prepping for Prosperity. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all today? Got back from our trip down to College of the Ozarks. It was just a wonderful time. I put a video over on the Patreon side. If you're not with us over on Patreon, it's quite a community. It's where I'm able to share a lot of additional information, and in addition to what we put on YouTube. And it's well worth your time and your money to join us over there. I'm going to answer, one of the things that it lets you do is ask me direct questions. And because I don't always have time to get back on the YouTube channels, that's one of the great things about the Patreon communities. It gives you a direct line to be able to ask me questions and such. But today, I'm going to answer a question from one of our Patreon members, because I think it's one of those things that so many people misunderstand about taxes, about money. You know, there's so many things, so much wrong information out there about money, and so many myths about money and taxes and such as that. And the reason is because so many people really don't understand it. It's not taught in schools for the most part, you know, unless you become an economics major. And as I said before, I know somebody very well who is a tenured professor of economics at one of the big colleges or big universities, who couldn't explain to me how jobs are created. So, you know, formal education doesn't always translate into understanding. But not only is it not taught in schools, that so often money is not taught in families. And when it is, it's not really taught, it's just kind of expounded. And what people say who don't really know gets picked up by others, and it gets, you know, repeated and repeated and repeated, and pretty much it becomes one of those things that everybody thinks they know, but they really don't. And the one I want to talk about today, and like I said, thank you for the patron who asked me this question in a message over there in the other community. And that is the idea, and you've probably heard people say this: well, I don't want to work much overtime, because when I do, I lose money because I get taxed more, right? You've heard that, haven't you? Now, this doesn't apply for people, you know, who are own their own businesses, and hopefully if you don't, you're moving in that direction. But it applies to the vast majority of people who are called employees, okay? You work for someone else, you're paid, you know, hourly or salary, whatever. And then if you're an hourly wager, you get paid overtime, right? But there's this idea, and I have heard it repeated. So I started hearing this when I was 18 years old, and I'm still hearing it. And whenever I hear it, I try to explain to the people what the situation is, how they're wrong about it. And sometimes they understand and sometimes they don't, and that's too bad. Here's the truth of this myth. The idea that if you make more money, it puts you in a higher tax bracket, and therefore you're paying more taxes, therefore it's not worth your time or money to work overtime. Okay. Well, if you're working at a job until you find a second job, or until you build up your own business, working overtime is one of the best ways to make money. As a matter of fact, it's a better way than getting a second job, because usually you're making more in overtime on your first job than you would make on a second job, right? So working overtime is what you want to do. Here's the truth of the situation, and here's what people misunderstand. And it's because of our tax system. We operate under what's referred to as a progressive tax system. Now, it's anything but progressive, it's regressive, but what it means is there are tax levels, tax rates, and they get higher the more money you make. Okay. Now, I won't get into what exactly the tax rates are. I'll keep it simple. let's say that the lowest tax rate is 20%. Okay, well, the lowest is actually nothing, but let's just say that the lowest is 20%. And let's say that the next rate is 35%. Okay, so that somebody makes up to a certain amount of money, they're paying 20% in taxes at that rate. Okay, so the person who has been misled to believe this myth about working overtime, they say, well, but if I make too much money, I get into the next tax bracket, and now I'm being taxed 35%. You've heard that, right? You've heard that. That's not how it works. Okay. Here's how it works. You get taxed, say you're 20%, until you hit that level at which the 35% tax bracket kicks in. But too many people think that means they're now taxed 35% on everything that they've made. It's not true. That's not what happens. You're taxed 20% on everything you make up until that bracket, okay? And then only on what you make above that bracket amount, say, I don't even know what it is right now. Only what you make above that is taxed at 35%. And those aren't the real numbers. I'm just using these as an examples, okay? Only what you make above that are you taxed the higher rate. So most people are paying a higher rate on a very small percentage of all of their overtime, okay? On most of your overtime, you're probably still getting taxed at the lower rate. And then once you hit a certain point, you're going to be taxed a little bit above that. Now, this ought to make you angry about taxes anyway, right? So you ought to work to get those taxes down. People love the progressive tax rate because they like the idea that the rich are getting taxed more, And it's totally, the rich aren't taxed at all because the rich know all of they're not loopholes, they're the legalities. There's so much you can deduct. And you're not evading taxes, you're avoiding taxes after a certain point. And if you have a good accountant and and that doesn't mean a sneaky accountant, it means an accountant that actually knows the tax law, you're able to deduct enough to where you're keeping your tax liability very, very low. The lower end people really don't have that ability to the extent that they're more affluent. And this is why you want to become more affluent, okay? But people love this idea that the rich are getting soaked. They're not, okay? And so that's why they have this, that feeds into the myth. So if you've heard this and you think that by making more money over time, you're going to be taxed more and therefore make less. I know I've actually heard people say, if I make more, I take home less. No, you don't. No, you don't. No. You might take home 65% of everything that you made in overtime, okay, instead of 80%. But you're still taking home a lot more. You're still making a lot more money. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, all right. Well, I hope that's helped for everyone out there because I know for our questioner, our patron over there, they were confused about it, and I fully understand that because I have been hearing this myself for over 50 years, and it's still going on. So don't worry about that. And not only that, hopefully, if you have just learned the truth here, spread it to your friends because so many people are being misled on these things. So hope that helped. Get out there and make everything you can. Every dollar you make is adding to your potential prosperity, and that adds to your ability to provide a better life and also prepare for uncertain times that we know are coming. Okay? Good. You all have a great day. If you're not with us on the Patreon community, please come join us. The link is down below. You'll get so much out of it. And I'd look forward to seeing your questions also if you're over there. So y'all have a great day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.